Hi there, 7th graders, and hope you're doing well. We're to Wednesday, and I hope that you were able to get your Tuesday homework done. Remember, just like always, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Today we are going to be working on prepositional phrases used as adverbs. So we have talked about phrases and clauses all year long, and so you should be really super familiar with the prepositional phrases. And just in case you're not, I just want to remind you of a few prepositions. You probably use these all the time: aboard, about, above, under, around, over, during, between, beyond, in, and the list goes on and on. And if you look in your book, the very next chapter that we will be taking a look at, and we probably will only hit a few things in here, is chapter 9, and it's called Prepositions, Conjunctions, and Interjections. And so if you're having trouble with prepositions, you could take a look at page 417 in your book, and there is a huge list there. Also, if you took Shirley English, you know the huge list that you learned in the preposition jingle. So just remember those. Sometimes people get confused about words. If you keep that list in front of you, you can often just reference it and look to see if the word is a preposition. But now we have these prepositional phrases that can actually be adverbial phrases or adjectival phrases, and you have to be able to recognize them. And so to do that, you've got to be able to know what questions the phrase is going to answer. And so it could, if it's an adverbial phrase or prepositional phrase, it will tell us how, when, or where. And just like any other adverbs, that's the question they're going to answer. Excuse me, I missed one. And why? How, when, where, and why. Then the prepositional phrase that modifies either an adjective or an adverb, so this would apply for either one, is going to tell us to what degree, how, or how much. So if you want to print out these couple of slides here, you could do that. This information is also in your book on page 385 in the gray box. And you would find those on the second and third bullet points. So just remember to always be looking at what question does this answer, and that will help you to clarify whether it's an adjective prepositional phrase or an adverbial prepositional phrase. A couple other points in the gray box. It points out for you to put it clearly, or put where it clearly modifies the word. So if you have the boy swam under the water, and I put the under the water boy swam, that one is super bad example, but I've obviously put that in the wrong place. If I had a long sentence though, and I accidentally put it in a place that it didn't clearly modify the verb, we'd have a problem. Similar to those misplaced clauses and phrases. And I know some of you sent those in for that contest, and I've not gotten back with you about that because a lot of them, the misplaced phrases and clauses weren't done correctly. So I at some point want to clear that up before I give any awards out for that. The second thing to remember is that prepositional phrases that are adverb phrases can also be mixed up with adjective phrases. And this is one of those, I don't know if you've ever made a milkshake or a smoothie and you just kind of throw everything in. Well, once in a while you're going to find sentences where everything's just thrown in. And you're going to have adverb phrases, but they have adjective phrases that are mixed in with them. And we're going to take a look at that in just a second. So if you would turn your page, we want to take a look and remind ourselves how prepositional phrases are diagrammed. So I always say with the diagram. It's the slanted line underneath the word it modifies, and turn right. So here is an example. Here's the God is great beyond our understanding. Here is the slanted line, turn right. Slanted line, turn right. And then our is actually another modifying word. Whose understanding? Our understanding. So it's going to go there. So regardless of whether it is modifying a noun, a verb, an adverb, an adjective, this is how prepositional phrases are always diagrammed. If there are multiple prepositional phrases, you will sometimes see it like this. But remember what we talked about earlier about mixing up the smoothie with everything in it? Well, this is, let's pick this one apart. We have Jesus sat in the boat. The in the boat is an adverbial because it's telling us where. So we answer that question. In a boat, near the edge, also adverbial because it is still telling us where. And that's what you would think if it was all by, if we just said Jesus sat near the edge, that would be adverbial. But in this case, it's going to get all mixed up in the smoothie. And actually, near the edge is modifying boat. It's telling us where the boat is. It's giving us more information about the boat. And then the same thing with edge of the lake. It sounds like where, but it's modifying this noun. So it's giving us, it's an adjective prepositional, just telling us more about the edge. Very confusing, I know. And there could even, you could justify calling these adverbial and just putting them all together in one big sentence. But this is the smoothie where everything gets mixed up. Jesus sat where? He sat in the boat. So this is modifying the verb. But then these, near the edge, is modifying the boat. So this is an adjective. And then edge is another noun. And of the lake is modifying edge. So we have adjective prepositional phrase, adjective prepositional phrase, adverbial prepositional phrase, modifying sat. So just make sure you're careful. Here's a verb, modify, and this is modifying that. Noun, noun. So just make sure that you're really clear when you look at those. Now, sometimes we're going to have a whole bunch that don't necessarily get stacked down on one another because they could all be used separately. And here's one. Prayer was, prayer without ceasing. I'm not sure what the original sentence is. Let me look that up so that I can read it off correctly. Prayer was made without ceasing of the church unto God for Peter. Now, I would probably, if you wrote that sentence, I would probably tell you to fix it. It's not very good. But any of these can be used by themselves. Prayer was made without ceasing, and we could end this sentence. We could also say prayer was made of the church. That one sounds a little funnier. I'd probably say by the church if I was going to use a prepositional phrase there. Prayer was made unto God, period. Prayer was made for Peter, period. If these could all be used individually and don't need the next one, they're not going to stack on top of each other. They're just going to all slanted right turn, slanted right turn, slanted right turn, slanted right turn. All of these are prepositions: for, unto, of, and without. And you see how they have done that little verbal there. So I should, just a reminder of when we stick that verbal in. So again, we have prayer was made, and we could say prayer was made without ceasing and put a period. We could say prayer was made of the church, period. Prayer was made unto God, period. Prayer was made for Peter. These are all adverbial. This tells us how. This tells us possibly to what extent. Again, how and who, I guess is what the question. It's hard sometimes to figure out the questions it's answering, but these are all modifying the verb. So sometimes it gets a little challenging to try to figure out where you are going to place these. Here, these are all modifying the verb. Adverbial phrase, adverbial phrase, adverbial phrase, adverbial phrase, because they all go with this. Up here, though, we do have some adjective phrases that are mixed in. So be careful as you work through the homework. So I want to go through the class practice just really quickly. And if we look at class practice A on page 389, it says read each adverb phrase, including any adjective phrase that might be in it. Tell what word the adverb phrase modifies, and give the part of speech. So all kinds of stuff that we're going to get to do here. So the first one is Nehemiah was sad about the news from Jerusalem. So in that one, about the news from Jerusalem, we've got two prepositional phrases in there, about the news from Jerusalem. And it modifies sad. It says Nehemiah was sad. So it's modifying the verb, but there is also an adjective phrase in there. Where did the news come from? Came from Jerusalem. That's adjective. Number 2, Nehemiah prayed to the God of heaven for wisdom. Whole bunch in there. To the God of heaven for wisdom. And the to the God of heaven is going to be modifying the verb. For wisdom is also modifying the verb, because either of those, Nehemiah prayed to the God of heaven, could end there. And we could also say Nehemiah prayed for wisdom, and we could have it be just like that. Number 3, the king sent him to Jerusalem. And to Jerusalem is telling where, and so it is going to be modifying sent, which is the verb. Number 4, Nehemiah went by the brook during the night and viewed the wall. By the brook is modifying went, so that's pretty clear. It's telling us where. During the night is also modifying went, because it's telling us when. So when, where, remember how. Those all are adverbial. Then number 5, Jerusalem lay in the ruins of its destruction. In the ruins of its destruction is modifying lay. So it's modifying the verb. Now, if we were to pick these apart and look for the adjective phrases in those, in this one, in the ruins of its destruction is the whole thing, modifying lay. But we could also pull out a piece, kind of like breaking something out of jail. We could pull a piece of it out. We could pull out of its destruction, and that modifies a noun. So it's modifying the noun ruins. They're not having you do that in this section. I'm just pointing it out. And Nehemiah, number 6, Nehemiah was ready for the challenge of rebuilding. For the challenge of rebuilding is adjective. What was he ready for? Challenge. And so it's moving over to modify. It says it's modifying ready, and that is that one's a difficult one to pull out, but this one is an adjective phrase. The number 7, we can read the account of this great work later in the book of Nehemiah. And where can we read it? In the book of Nehemiah. So it's an adverb telling us where. We can read the account. And so it's telling us where. So hopefully that gives you a little idea about what you're going to be doing with some of your homework. This is really getting to the nitty-gritty, a little bit harder stuff. So don't panic if you are not clear. If you get really confused, have your mom contact me and take a picture of the answers, and then she would have those to go over with you. But remember, you sometimes are going to have adjective phrases sneaking in there. Mostly we're looking at the adverb phrases. That's the chapter we're working on right now. So focus on those. And then on Monday we'll be looking at adverb clauses. And we should be able to finish up this chapter by the end of school and move on and talk a little bit about prepositions in the next chapter. So hope you have a good weekend, and I'll see you Monday.